All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're going on a pretty wild journey to understand the very foundations of our existence. We're going to explore an architecture of reality that might just challenge everything you think you know about the universe. So let's kick things off with a question that's going to frame everything we talk about today. What if the universe isn't just a bunch of dead matter floating around in empty space? What if the very fabric of our reality is alive? To even begin to answer a question like that, well, we've got to start at the very top. We're going to begin our cosmic descent by looking at the highest levels of reality, realms that exist completely outside of our familiar dimensions of space and time. Okay, so right at the very, very peak of everything is what this framework calls the One. Now, this isn't a being like you and me. It's something else entirely. It's a timeless, simple, indivisible source. It's pure unity, beyond any form or description you could imagine. The transcendent wellspring that everything, and I mean everything, flows from. And spilling out from the One, the very first thing to emerge is something called nous. You can think of it as the divine intellect. It's the first localization of that pure unity, a realm of pure thought that holds the eternal blueprints, the perfect forms for every single thing that could possibly exist. The key here is that it's still totally outside of time. It just is eternally. Okay, so we've been talking about this eternal, timeless realm. But how do we get from that to, well, us? This is where we shift from the eternal to the temporal, and we start to see how the reality we actually live in begins to take shape. And this brings us to a really key idea, something called aeviternity. It's so important to get the distinction here. See, something that's eternal exists completely outside of time, like the One and nous. But something that's aeviternal, well, it exists within the flow of time, but it lasts for as long as time itself exists. This is the exact nature of the foundational beings we're about to get into. So you can see how this all cascades down, right? Reality flows downwards from that pure unity, and each step is described as a negation or a limitation of the one above it. Nous gives form to the One's formlessness. The world soul takes the static, timeless nature of nous and introduces a temporal order. And finally, the material world takes the world soul and gives it a spatial manifestation. Each step adds a whole new layer of structure to reality. So what does this actually mean for our universe? It means the fundamental building blocks of our world aren't just random accidents. They are aeviternal beings. They're like the shadows that these higher, more unified realities cast onto the fabric of our world. They are literally the bridge between the timeless and the temporal. All right, with that foundation laid, now we can get to the really juicy part, the three primary aeviternal beings that form the very architecture of our world. These are the pillars holding up everything we know and experience. Pillar number one is time, but hold on, because it's not what you think. In this model, time isn't some fundamental dimension of the universe. It's actually an aeviternal being, defined simply as the ordering of change or events. It's the way the world's soul experiences all those timeless perfect forms from nous. Instead of seeing them all at once, it perceives them one after another, which creates the illusion of past, present, and future that we're all stuck in. Pillar number two is space. And again, we've got to throw out our old definitions. Space isn't an empty void or just nothingness. It's a fundamental entity all on its own, defined as the potential to be filled with energy. Think about it like this. If you have a box full of stuff and you take all the stuff out, the box, the space itself, is still there, right? It's an independent, aeviternal structure that allows for matter to be organized. Now, for the third, and honestly, maybe the most mind-bending pillar of them all, quantum fluctuations. Here's the wild part. You can't actually have nothing. Absolute nothingness is a logical paradox. Instead, even the vacuum of space is buzzing with a baseline energy where, thanks to the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, tiny particle-antiparticle pairs are constantly popping in and out of existence. This is happening everywhere, all the time. And this is where things get really, really profound, because all of the structure we've been talking about points to something incredible. The very origin of consciousness itself. Just think about the early universe for a second. It was incredibly smooth, almost perfectly uniform. But if everything is perfectly the same, nothing can happen. There's no change, no structure. Those quantum fluctuations were the only source of difference, tiny little ripples in the otherwise smooth fabric of reality.
Without those ripples, there would be no gradients, no clumping of matter, and absolutely nothing for life or consciousness to ever emerge from.
This leads to a pretty staggering idea from the source material. Consciousness isn't just some happy accident of complex biology. It's fundamentally woven into the physical world. Quantum fluctuations are described as the mirror of awareness. It's not that one causes the other in a straight line. It's more like being and awareness are in this timeless dance, pulling each other into existence. They co-define each other. This analogy really helps paint the picture. Imagine the vacuum of the entire universe as a single, boundless ocean of awareness. Now, a local state, like a rock, a planet, or even your own body, is like a single wave on that ocean. The wave itself isn't aware. It's just a temporary pattern. But it's intrinsically part of the whole, made of and supported by that aware ocean. Okay, so let's pull all these threads together now and look at the big picture. Let's explore the dynamic interplay of these forces that governs our reality, creating what you can only really describe as a conscious cosmos. For every action, there's a reaction, right? Well, if emanation is this great outward flow from unity into all this complexity, there has to be a counterforce. And that force is called epistrophe. It's the innate longing of every created thing to return to its source, the one. And this journey back home is achieved through contemplation. It's a fundamental drive towards unity that exists in everything. And right here, you can see this cosmic balancing act in action. On one side, you've got the world soul's emanation, this outward force creating structure, using force fields to try and lock particles into definite positions. But on the other side, you have the material world's mind-expressing epistrophé, an inward, contemplative force that spreads particles out through quantum uncertainty. It's a constant push and pull.
So this material world's mind, that's another one of these aeviternal beings. It isn't material like a chunk of rock. Its identity is tied to its function, and its job is to balance that creative, structuring force of the world soul. It's the cosmic counterweight, making sure reality doesn't just collapse into either pure randomness or totally rigid form.
So let's wrap this up. What are the big takeaways here? First, space, time, and quantum fluctuations aren't just separate random things that happened. They are interconnected aeviternal beings. They form the bridge between the absolute unity of the one and the messy, complex, beautiful world that we experience. And maybe the biggest takeaway of all is that awareness isn't some afterthought, some product of matter. It's fundamental to its very existence. And that leaves us with one final, pretty provocative thought to chew on. If the universe isn't a dead machine, but a living, aware system, and if our own consciousness is just a localized wave in a vast cosmic ocean of awareness, then what does it truly mean to be a participant in a conscious cosmos?